Hello, wonderful people. Welcome back, welcome back, welcome back. Today I'm very jolly. We are a week away from Christmas, and I don't know about you guys, but I don't like shopping. I really don't like shopping. Um, I'm starting to understand that Christmas is for little kids. We do a lot of stuff for the little kids, to make them believe in the magic of Christmas. To be honest, I'm still a little kid. I still believe in the magic of Christmas. I shouldn't be talking. So I did some online shopping. Woke up today, worked out, and had breakfast. I'm working on my blog. Please go check it out. And I just decided, let's record another episode. So here we go. So I am hoping that you are enjoying your holiday season. Again, I'm recording these episodes a couple of weeks before they are released. So that's why I may give you updates about what I'm currently doing, because honestly, this is like my therapy. I've realized that working on this has been therapeutic. Working on this page, on this podcast and my blog has honestly been therapeutic, because I don't have people to talk to, so I like talking to you guys, and you listen. So, and for the first time, I'm in a space where people are listening to me. So I am very happy, and I'm thankful. So in today's episode, I wanted to tell you guys a story about a group that even I did not know about until 2019. And that group illustrates the ambiguities of identity, and I was just fascinated by them. Like, if you listen to the first episode, you will understand why I've always been interested in the theme of identity. And if you've been in this community, you know that identity is a big thing for me because of my own upbringing. And so when I first found out about this group, I was just fascinated by the whole history around them, that I wanted to do my PhD on them. Last year, I applied to go back to Belgium to study them. But unfortunately, I did not get the grant that I needed to study them, so I am postponing my PhD goals and everything. But every day I think about this group, and I would like to introduce you guys to this group and give you a bit some social commentary, right? So this is in relationship with identity, because these are the lost community of the Congo. They're the lost community of Belgium. So they are the Belgian Metis. So Metis is French for biracial. So the Belgian Metis are very interesting to me because they display, and I'm sure they're not the only one, but they display how can I say, a revolution against this idea of race, this idea of belonging, this idea of being, right? Because now, and this is not just for the Belgian Métis, but I feel like Métis in general, biracials in general, and I've told you that I have a couple of my cousins who are biracial. Like, I have some who are English and Congolese, German and Congolese. But to be honest, the German and Congolese one, I just consider them to be German because their subjective identity has nothing to do with the Congo. So I just, I just relate to them. I just see them as German and everything. And some are Portuguese Congolese, and I do have a couple who are French Congolese. So I always find it very interesting from a historical perspective and a political perspective and a social perspective, the the positionality of biracial children, right? Because they are brought up in a world where their existence does not make sense, or their existence should not have happened, right? Like, because of this idea of white supremacy and everything, black people were not meant to mix with white people. They were not meant to produce with white people, except if the master decided to rape the black girl, right? So, but they were not meant to be together. There needed to be a clear separation of like race, right? And biracials, to quote Trevor Noah, they were born a crime. And even a biracial person who's born in 2023, like from a historical perspective, regardless of how advanced that we are in today's age, and I put advanced in quotation because yes, we have gone a long way. Like we have made some progress, but there's still a lot of work that needs to be done. But even in 2023, a biracial person is born a crime in a sense, but not like not a crime that their parents are criminal, but it's a crime against sort of the social order. And that's weird to think about because like mixing is normal, right? Because of social media, because of like our exposure to different cultures, like we are not one thing. We have become like, you have black people, you have white people who are interested in South Korean cultures, you have Chinese people who speak Lingala, like they speak Lingala better than me. So it's like, so we are in an interconnected world, but still this idea of being in an interracial couple is kind of looked at like, what the hell are you doing, right? Or the offspring of those couples end up feeling like my existence is not welcome in a way. So in that sense, I pity, not in a bad, like, maybe pity is a strong word. I can relate to that, right? I can relate to the similarities of experience, but I'm not saying that it's the same to my experience. So the biracial Metis were children of Congolese women and Belgian fathers. During the colonial rule, first of all, let's go back. During King Leopold's rule of the Congo, he allowed that white colonial officer have sex with black women. And and the explanation was, they're working hard, they need to blow off some steam, so it's okay that, they're using them to just, for pleasure, right? But under the Belgian government, it was strictly like, no, how dare you? We are white, we are pristine. How dare you mix with these people who are backward and everything? So it was strict all around, but I cannot believe I'm about something. And to be honest, it's not even me saying something nice about Leopold. It's just telling him facts. Like, he allowed the white soldiers or the white colonial powers to have sex with the black women to blow off steam. Let's leave it there. And then, but during the Congolese colonial rule under the Belgian government, like, it was strictly forbidden. Like, you are not supposed to mate with them, and so. And you had their offspring, in most cases, being taken away from their Congolese family. And it's very interesting on how it happened, because on one hand, the missionaries or the Belgians were arguing that because these kids have some of our blood, we need to take them away from the barbaric African ways, right? So in the Congo, the biracial, like the Belgian Metis, were separated from both their parents, but their white dads, if they choose to do so, had more power to go see them than their African mothers. And most of the time it was the white man and the black woman. There's few instances of like black men with a white woman, but because again you are playing with sexism and racism at the same time, like there wasn't a lot of black men being with white women. And the reason why the colonial officers were sleeping with the black men, because there were not a lot of white women around. And there's a history where a lot of colonial powers sent white women to the colonies, right, to be able to satisfy the men so that they don't resort to sleeping with the black woman. But yeah, that's another story. But it happened in Asia, it happened in Africa, it happened in the West Indies, so and so. So in the Congo, they were segregated, right? So there was this idea like, because these kids share white blood, because they are not fully African, let's salvage them, right? Let's save them. So they put them in orphanage, they put them in boarding school, they took them away from their parents. And not only does the Congolese mother is facing this world where as a woman she's seen as inferior, but as a black person she's also being seen as inferior. Some of the women mindset, because I watched a couple of documentaries and everything, some of the women mindset was, by giving them my kid and giving them an education, they will be able to become somebody, work in the system to come and help us. And I can understand that, right? Because in a way it kind of makes sense, right? Like in African culture, you send your kid to school to learn Victor Hugo and all the stupid French stuff that even French people don't even learn about, so that we can be able to have jobs in our own country, right? Sounds fucked up, but basically that's the world that Africans have been under. So I can understand that perspective of like giving your kid away for the hopes that they will not have to suffer the same thing that you are suffering, because in a way they kind of share the superior blood, right? And it's interesting because in the United States, I read it, the 3/4 rule, right? It was the 3/4 rule. Blood rule was like, if the baby had less than 1% blood, whatever, they're still black, right? And although the Belgian had the same attitude, they were just like, but they're salt, we can save them. We can take them away from the barbaric stuff. And it also created a place where you have a mother feeling like because her child had white blood, her child was superior than her. And that is so fucked up in so many different ways. It's so messed up on so many different ways, right? So kids in the Congo were segregated from the Congolese parents. Some Congolese mothers didn't even have access to them. They could not like go and see their kids when they wanted. They had to schedule visits, and some visits were being denied by the missionaries who worked at those institutions and everything. And then the fathers, the one who wanted to claim the child, they were able to go see their child. But there were some kids whose mother will hide them from the colonial officers who will want to go to the boarding school, who will want to be with that population, right? So you have this system where there's this clash of a lot going on. You're my child, and trust me, African kids, you cannot tell your mama what to do. You cannot tell an African mother what to do. You mean to tell me I birthed you out, I pooped you out of my vagina, and you're going to tell me what to do? Hey, I can already imagine. But you have this thing that is so confronting, right? Because you have a mother who is not being seen as worthy enough to educate her child because she's inferior. So what does that do to sort of like the child, right? What is a child and mother relationship? Do you think that child will respect the mother or see the mother as their mother? Right? That was one of the most screwed up ways to mess kids up, right? But upon when independence was happening, let's talk about countries like the Congo, Rwanda, and Burundi gaining their independence. The Belgian had another rule, right? They were like, well, we've had these kids since they were babies. We've educated them. None of these people have the balls to ask us to leave the places that we have helped to make better. We need to save these kids. Because look at what they're doing. They're barbaric. They're asking for independence. So we need to save these kids. So they come up with a plan that they will have the kids go to Belgium because these kids present as white, right? They don't know their African traditions. They have not lived with their African families, most of them. They have been parented by colonial people, right? So they say, yeah, we cannot leave them here. So let's make another deal with the parents, right? And so some parents were told that, hey, if your kid is 17, like, let them go to Belgium, right? Let your kid continue their education in Belgium, right? They will make a better life. Like, they will work. They will send you money. It will be a way to lift your family up, right? And some parents agree to that because, again, you're poor, you don't know anything, like you don't really know how the system is working, you have been institutionalized and everything. So some parents willingly send their kids to go to Belgium and everything to continue their education in hopes that they will come back and they will be able to help their families, right? But how can you ask somebody to help their families when they have no connection to you? Oh, I just said something that just reminded me of my own family. Why do I be sending these people money that I don't even know? That's another story. But yeah. So how can you take away the child? Some kids were taken, brought to the boarding school since they were babies. They don't really know their families. But you are telling their parent, and you constantly don't allow them to see their parents or be close to their African cultures and everything. But you are selling to their parents like, oh yeah, they love you. They know about you. They will help you. How does that make sense? But I digress. Whew. This story just makes me go poof. So they bring them to, but yeah, some families signed those documents on, because they thought, yes, that makes sense. My kid is going to be educated, is going to be somebody, get a better job and come and help us, like the classic African story. They go to Belgium and there's no communication whatsoever with their families back in the Congo. Not only do these kids go to Belgium away from the Congolese mother, but a lot of them were not claimed by their Belgian fathers, so they were orphans. Siblings were separated, so if one lived in Wallon, which is the French-speaking part of Belgium, the other one lived in the Flanders region, the other one lived in Brussels. Like, there was an instant where a biological father of a kid, adopted the kid, but the kid only knew him as his adopted father than as his biological father. Like, this man was willing to have this kid, his kid, see him as like, oh yeah, we saved you. Yes, I'm your adopted father. And that was the sentiment, right? We are saving you. We're saving you from your barbaric African culture. We're saving you from your African mothers. And then you had mothers who were told that, hey, your kid died. You have kids who were told that, hey, your mother died, your father died. And they put them in orphanages. They excluded them from from Belgian society. So they were a people with no land. So they were stateless in their own land. So you don't belong to the Congo, you don't belong to Belgium. So where the hell do I belong? So where the hell do I belong? So you have kids who grew up and they could not have, because they don't have legal documents, some of them could not work, and it wasn't until 2019 that the Belgian government officially apologized for the way they treated the Belgian Metis. And that's how I found out about this history. I did not know this history. I don't even know if people in the Congo talk about it. So they were the lost generation of the Congo. And currently, there are being projects and steps to rehabilitate them. And that's what my PhD was going to be about, right? Now that we know about this history, now that they are making strides and everything, what is this sense of belonging? What do you identify as? Because they grew up in Belgium. The Belgian community, the broader Belgian community don't really know them, right? Like, how do you introduce this community to the broader community? And what is the response that the Belgian community is going to have? And what is the response that the Belgian Metis should have now that they're being quote unquote rehabilitated, right? And how do they build the bridges between their Belgian identity and their Congolese identity when they have lived their entire lives being neither? In Africa, they couldn't live with their African parents because they were Belgians, because you saw them as having some, let's feel bad for them. They have some of our blood. But then when they went to Belgium, they're like, nah, you know what? Those fools are still African. They will come and mess up the social order of our pure whiteness. So now, how do you rehabilitate them? So last year, when I was writing my grant proposal, the first Belgian Metis to get his birth certificates, right? He was 74 years old. 74. I'm sure this man have kids. I'm sure he has grandkids. Like, how do you address that generational trauma? And Belgium have been I'm about to say something nice about the government. I have to say something nice about the government because might have to work with them as somebody who's trying to work with the U.S. government. They have been taking steps, right, to quote unquote right their wrong, right? And it seems that it has been a bit easier to do that for the Belgian Metis than it would be for them to do that for the Congo in general. So this is a small percentage of Congolese who are having retribution. Is retribution the right word? But who are having some sort of recourse that the Congo as a whole cannot have with Belgium. And I can argue that it's because the Belgian Metis is on Belgian soil, right? So it's easier for Belgians to address that in Belgium, right? But yeah, so that make me wonder, like, for such population, is it fair for them to continue to not belong to anybody, right? Because when we look at subjective identity, your history is that of not belonging to anyone. So when now they ask you, be like, oh yeah, let's say Belgium's like, I'm gonna give you citizenship, you're not Belgium and everything. Will you feel Belgium even though you lived in Belgium your whole life? Will you feel Belgian even though you've been there your whole life? Because the way we decide or we construct our own subjective identity is where we feel most welcome, right? It's the aspect of our lives that feels innate in us or that feels natural to us. So if you lived in a world where you were always excluded, is there a world where you can feel included, not that the power that be decided to include you? Another question is also like, what does that say about your society? Because living in Belgium, I know that Belgian colonial history is not fairly taught. A lot of Belgians don't know, most people be like, but we're doing the Lord's work, we're spreading Christianity. They see colonialism as, a good job because they were spreading Christianity. So they don't really know about the horrors and everything. So some people don't know about the horrors and all that. And so how do you have that conversation as a society even? And what does that say about your identity? If you view colonization as, doing good work, and now that you have a physical representation of what the damages of colonization was, how do you deconstruct your feelings of being Belgian? Does that make sense? And I always felt like I remember when my cousin was like, oh yeah, but when I go to, to the black side, they say that I'm white. And then, so it's like, so that's why I feel white, right? And although I sympathize with being frustrated that regardless of which side that you're on, they always claim that you're from the other side, that happens to me all the time. With race and with how the power that men constructed race, I although I also believe that Black people should be more educated and be more sympathetic and everything towards biracial people, and how some of the stuff that they say can kind of trigger them and add to like further displeasures of being, in the Black community, of can add to them feeling like they cannot belong to the Black community. I feel like it is important to give Black people a lot of grace, right? Like my mother, anybody that has straight hair, she calls them white. And I'll be like, Mom, she's Asian. She'll be like, they don't have hair like us. They don't have this like us, And although I will correct her, I understand why she says stuff like that, because that's what she was taught. If you look at any society, the darkest of any society is inferior to the lightest. There are Black Chinese people. There are brown Chinese people. But you will never see them in Chinese media. There are dark-skinned Indians, and they will tell you they face a lot of things in their community. So from a Black eye perspective, when you've been told that anything else that does not resemble what you have is more beautiful or is an epitome of whiteness, which is greatness, I can understand why some issues, regardless of what minority community that is happening to, Black people will be like, yeah, but you're white, right? And I know it's so dismissive, and trust me, I understand. Like, I always correct people all the time, and I get in trouble for correcting people all the time because they'd be like, oh, you're a white sympathizer, blah, 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 blah. Story of my life. But, yeah, they'd be like, you're white. Because that's what they were taught. That's what was sort of ingrained in them. Look at the steps that this government took to really make feel Black women awful. Imagine the parents being like, yeah, my child is better than me because she has, she's lighter, or because, her hair is more straighter than mine. She has a lot of hair and everything. Like, that's abuse. That's abuse. Right? So yeah, guys, I don't know. This is a interesting topic. I would really love to. I'm still following up. If you guys are interested, please look it up. And the Belgian Metis are not the only group that has faced this. We know about the Native Americans in the United States, Canada, in Latin America. I know I'm going to butcher the names, but the Natives Australian has faced the same thing, like all around Africa, all around Asia. So yeah, this is interesting. This is a interesting topic, and I've always been fascinated on how biracial people face the identities. And I also feel like observing some biracial people in my own family, some of those who are raised in a community that acknowledge their both sides have, like, they have a easier way to construct their identities than those who don't. Like, I have one who very insecure, and it doesn't help that the Black parents left the family, so sometimes you can be like, okay, her resentment against Blackness not only is societal, but then having a deadbeat parent, added to the fuel. And so she just felt very disconnected to her black side. And she's living in a country where there's not really like a lot of sensitivity around race relations and race issues, because I think race discussion in Europe is very covert. So yeah. All right, guys, that's all I have. I don't have any more. Whew, that was a roller coaster. As always, thank you for showing up. Thank you for listening. Please check out these stories if you're interested in the Belgian Metis. There's a project called the Metis Project. Google it. If there's way to donate to their work and their services, please do. They are trying to unify families of people who are like in their 70s, hoping that their mamas are still alive and all that. So they're doing really amazing work. So yeah, check them out. Thank you for listening to me. Don't forget to check out my blog. I'll talk to you guys later. Bye.